Hi, this video is all about how I set up my high school classroom decor. I will go over supplies and specific decorations as well as show you the transformation pictures. Now, we all know that the best classroom decor is purposeful, so you'll get a glimpse of that here, but the plan is to make another video explaining how this setup assists with classroom systems to help it run smoothly. Okay, so I teach business and technology electives, including Yearbook, but many of the tips I'll share will work with any high school classroom. And you might want to take some notes because I have like a billion tips. So here we go. Here are the supplies I used. And by the way, if you're a new teacher, please don't feel like you need to do all the things. As I record this, I'm going into year 16 and I've added little by little to my classroom over the years. So keep in mind that it's a work in progress and there's no need to feel like you have to do it all. What's that Teddy Roosevelt quote? Something like, do what you can where you are with what you have. Well, that's the sentiment we're going for here. All right, so here is a breakdown of the supplies I used. First up is something for the background. This year I'm using a roll of Better Than paper, which I've never used before, but I've heard good things about. And this is not at all an ad, but I've included a link in the description below if you're interested in learning more about it. I'm also using a roll of butcher paper, but any color paper will do. It's not pictured here, but I'm using black bulletin board paper too. Really, there are lots of background choices. I've seen other teachers use wrapping paper and even fabric. Next up are brown paper bags. These are just grocery store bags and they will be used for the trunk of a money tree. I also use twine and mini clothespins for hanging student work and/or station papers. More on this coming up, so stay tuned. Next is construction paper, bulletin board borders, and printed posters. There are a ton of classroom posters for free on TPT. I love these by the talented Prince Padonia because they're adorable, but also because there are lots of sports and entertainment peeps represented, and one of the classes I teach is sports and entertainment marketing. I also love these Level of Understanding posters by Maple and Math. They're great for formative assessment, especially in classes like accounting. And these watercolor plant posters are by Learning with the Kensingers, who, by the way, have over 30 freebies in their store. I will link all of these free posters in the description below. And as a side note, I did not laminate, so when I'm finished with these, then they can be easily recycled. Okay, moving on to things I've gotten at the party store. Party stores are great for theme decor, such as this fake money, which will be used as leaves on that money tree I mentioned. Party stores are also great for these table skirts with an adhesive strip. They're good for hiding random things on bookshelves or things under a teacher's desk or table. And here are a bunch of miscellaneous things I've collected over time. Some of the items, such as the green retro bins, are hand-me-downs. The black lamp is from way back. It was actually in my college dorm. Others I've gotten on clearance, such as the green lamps, the black and white signs, and the mirrors. The fake plant was a gift for my windowless classroom. The @ symbol was also a gift, and I purchased the LED string lights because I'm a fan of the softer lighting. Lastly, these materials are helpful for hanging up the decorations. Hot glue works better than anything else I've tried for hanging things on the cinder block walls that are typical in all the classrooms in which I've taught. It keeps things hung up longer and peels off pretty easily too. A yardstick and utility knife are helpful for cutting that background paper. Oh, and pro tip, cut over a broken down cardboard box so that you don't accidentally damage the floor or table underneath. And they're not pictured here, but push pins are awesome for setting up bulletin boards. Pin across the top first, then smooth out the paper and pin along the sides and the bottom. If you get bubbles or wrinkles, just repin in sections and smooth them out. Once it's all good, then staple. Oh, and staples. Having extra staples is a really good idea too. Another pro tip for bulletin boards is that vertical seams are your friends. They sort of flatten themselves because of gravity, so if you have to use more than one piece of paper, make the seams vertical. For example, this huge bulletin board has 6 pieces of bulletin board background paper. I could have used 2 super long pieces, but more pieces hanging vertically is easier to handle while hanging, and again, the vertical seams pretty much flatten themselves. To do this particular board, I measured how wide the paper was on the roll. In this case, it was 3 feet. Then I figured out how many sheets I would need to go across the whole board hanging vertically. The board is 18 feet long, so I needed 6 because 18 divided by 3 is 6. Then I measured the board height, which is 4 feet, and used my yardstick to measure 4 feet as I was unrolling and cutting the 6 pieces of paper off the roll. Ooh, and this is very important. When you go to set up your classroom, don't forget to pack water and snacks. Okay, are you ready for the classroom transformation? Here we go. This giant bulletin board is dedicated to yearbook goals. I hung the chalkboard banner that says yearbook using these big paper clips. I just clipped the twine and tucked the little metal part between the board and the wall. I'm going to have staffers finish this with charts to represent progress on our goals. I'll post it on Instagram and Facebook, so follow along there if you're interested in seeing the finished product. And I created the letters and little signs using Google Slides. There are lots of tutorials on how to do this online, but if you like this style and don't want to take the time, check out the link in the description below. You can also get these letters and signs for a yearbook info center, which I used on a separate bulletin board in the hallway. The Meet the Staff pieces are editable, and there are editable mailbox name tags included too. Moving on to big blank walls. I found that this is a perfect solution for lots of empty wall space. Hang wide strips of background paper on the walls by putting a spot of hot glue in the top corners, pressing it to the wall where you want it, and then smooth the paper down and put a dab of glue in the bottom corners and then press those to the wall. The strips don't have to be the same width, and they don't have to be hung evenly either. It can still be pretty without being perfect. And if I'm being honest, the plan was all butcher paper, but I accidentally cut too much of the black paper, so I decided to incorporate it here too, which brings up a good point. Classroom setup is not likely to go exactly as planned, so just roll with it. Moving on to the twine, tie a little bow on the end and hot glue the bow to the top left corner of the paper, drape it a little bit, tie another bow, and hot glue this one to the top right corner of the paper. Place the clothespins a little more than paper width apart. Again, I use this to hang student work and/or station papers, which I'll tell you more about in my classroom systems video. Now this is another section that didn't turn out exactly as planned. I'm not in love with the spacing around the flags, and I thought about taking them down and respacing them, but whatevs. Maybe next year. To prepare these, I put a tiny dab of hot glue in the corners to attach the poster to the construction paper to make a little border on each, and then used hot glue to adhere them to the wall. Here are more posters hung the same way. I realize not everyone has a space like this in their classrooms, but something similar can be done on a smaller scale if you have any kind of cabinets, or it could even be inspiration for how to decorate a plain old filing cabinet. And here is the money tree. I have an idea for an activity to go with this bouncing around in my brain, so I think I'll make a whole separate video about it once I work out the details, but here are the basics on how I did it this far. I used those paper grocery bags for the trunk. I just ripped the parts of the bag that didn't have any writing on them and then crumpled them up and stapled them to the bulletin board to resemble a tree trunk and limbs. What's great about this is that trees in nature are not perfect, and your money tree does not have to be perfect either. Just crumple and staple, step back, take a look, restaple, crumple and staple some more, and there you go. The leaves are made out of the party store money, and just crumple and staple. Again, I'll make a separate video with more details about this bulletin board and an activity to go with it, so stay tuned for that if you're interested. Oh, and a side note about this, I ran out of my better than paper background, so I made this one bulletin board look like two by simply adding both borders vertically down the board like this. There we go with the whole not going as planned thing again, but it turned out really well in this case because it was perfect for the levels of understanding posters. So there you go. That is how I decorate my high school classroom. I hope you find these tips helpful. Stay tuned for another video explaining how this setup assists with classroom systems to help it run smoothly. And if you're interested in learning more tips and seeing resources in action, check out my other videos here on YouTube and/or follow along on Instagram or Facebook if you're into that kind of thing. As always, thanks for watching.